crying baby is a breathing baby. You have just experienced, in a small way, the plight of babies who cannot breathe at birth. My journey began the day I understood how often that science can be prevented, can, that silence can be prevented. The frantic cry of the birth attendant, help, the baby is not breathing, is not just a call to action, it is my personal calling. As the death of a fetus at or after 28 weeks of gestation, occurring before or during birth. Neonatal mortality rate is very important. It's death within the first 26, 28 days per 1,000 live births. Birth. Stillbirth from 28 weeks plus early neonatal death within the first week per 1,000 total deliveries is, on the other hand, the perinatal mortality rate. So it takes into consideration both stillbirth and total delivery. I will let us begin with where every baby story starts. At birth, we hear Ekwe Womo. Unfortunately, not every mother receives this congratulatory message. The first day of birth is the riskiest day for neonatal mortality, followed by the first week. So this defines the neonatal mortality rate and the perinatal mortality rate. Towards the end of the first decade of my professional career, I was perturbed by Nigerians under 5 mortality. It was a staggering 193 deaths per 1,000 live births, which meant that approximately 1 out of every 5 children did not see their 5th birthday. 3 global commitments followed. We had the era of the health for all by the year 2000. That was in the first decade of my professional journey. Then MDG came and went and was gone. We didn't meet the Millennium Development Goals. And now we have the Sustainable Development Goals. Goal 3.2 targets a neonatal rate of 12 per 1,000 live births, while under 5 mortality rate of 25 per 1,000 live births. What is the trend in Nigeria? Between 1990, when we started talking about health for all, and when we started talking about development goals, to the present, if we look at the under 5 mortality, our progress has not been bad, but uneven, because under 5 mortality has fallen by 48% to 110, while neonatal mortality has barely moved. It's from 42 to 41, even rising from 39 in 2018. Since newborn constitutes 47, at least 47% of under 5 deaths, cutting neonatal mortality is the key to reaching the 2030 target. Sadly, within Nigeria, there are inequities and disparities as relates to where the baby is born and to whom the baby is born. Is the mother educated? This graph shows us that the northern Nigeria indices are worse than the south indices. Neonatal mortality in northwest is at 48 per 1,000 live births, and nearly double that of the south. That is in the northwest is 48, and double the Southwest, which is 25 per thousand live births. Closing these equity gaps rather than simply improving national average is where the greatest gain in newborn survival will be found. I would like to compare our figures of neonatal mortality rate across other African and low middle income countries. You can see from this graph that the neonatal mortality rates as of 1990 and 20 and in blue and 2020 in red significantly has changed for a lot of countries, but our dear Nigeria is the last column. We can see little or no change. While in Malawi, in Ethiopia, South Africa, and other countries outside Africa, while they have over 70% change between these time periods, Nigeria has only had 2.4% change. Dear Madam Vice Chancellor, Nigerian newborn babies are not breathing. Now, having compared neonatal mortality rates between Nigeria and outside Nigeria, let us take a closer look at both the clinical and environmental causes. What are the causes? Globally, about 1 million newborn babies die within 24 hours of life. The leading causes of death include prematurity, birth asphyxia, neonatal infections, and congenital abnormalities. 4 out of 10 children under 5 died in the neonatal period. The verbal and social autopsy uses the Nigerian Demographic Health Survey data based on the survey done in the population, but putting into consideration social determinants of health. So the results of 2 different analyses are shown here. The graphs, the pie chart we can see here reveal what we have been talking about, the summary that I've given previously. There are other remote causes, human factors, health system factors, socioeconomic factors. High out-of-pocket expenditure is one of our problems. The causes of neonatal mortality has not changed over the past 20 years. In a study comparing changes in 2006, rates in 2006 to rates in 2026, we can see from this chart that there have been little or no change. So what happens at birth? Let us explore the anatomy and physiological changes at birth. Every birth attendant needs to understand the signs of moving from placenta-dependent intrauterine life to breathing with the lungs within seconds. Dear Madam Vice Chancellor, ma'am, I do not come to lecture you and our institution on anatomy today, but the next slide will give us some explanation. Basically, we can see that the adult airway is larger, the trachea, the larynx are larger, the airway is larger. But for the neonate and the pediatric age group, it is narrower and compliant. Even the air sacs are still developing into childhood from birth. So the baby has enormous challenge in breathing. Remember our little breathing exercise, breath holding exercise. Some of you could not hold oxygen for some few seconds. Go without oxygen for some few seconds. So you can compare the immature airway of the newborn at birth using the lungs that has never really been used before. Imagine what the baby suffers with all these odds. and other factors from the family is born into and all. Well, fortunately, we thank God that most newborns that delivered come out breathing. In fact, most, about 85% of them begin breathing spontaneously. 10% of them will need the routine drying and stimulation and start breathing. 5% might need assistance with breathing, and we need to use the bag and mask to ventilate this baby. If this stops, if this does not help, despite adequate ventilation with bag and mask, then the baby has to have cardiac massage by chest compression. And this is when the health worker will scream, "Help!" Baby is not breathing. And we have to proceed with the neonatal resuscitation protocol. The protocol is easy. It is just the ABCD that we all learned in kindergarten. A, open airway, clear the airway. B, help the breathing either, with ambu bag, support circulation with chest compression, give drugs when needed. Because the most common causes of cardiac arrest in the neonate is respiratory failure and shock. Unlike in the adult, where most common cause of cardiac arrest is coronary disease. This implies that adequate ventilation is the key, is very critical and must be done well for the baby to breathe. Failure to extract. Now, let us look at perinatal asphyxia. Why prompt action must be done to prevent perinatal asphyxia? It is failure to establish and sustain spontaneous breathing at birth, because it can lead to many complications, immediate complications like seizures, altered consciousness, to cerebral palsy. We all have seen children who have delayed milestones. We've talked about reduction in child mortality. There's also improvement of family well-being, better population health. Economic benefits are profound. Poverty reduction. When surviving healthy newborns are able to have good nutrition, education, healthcare that builds on the cognitive and cognitive and physical skills, it raises a lifetime productivity and earning potential. Thus, newborn survival enhances human capital formation. Now we will go on to answering the call, what are the global burden and neonatal mortality response worldwide? There was a landscape shaping publication by Professor Joy Laws titled 4 million neonatal deaths, when, where, why, in 2005. It led to several other publications in the Lancet series of the survival. And after then, we were mentored throughout by my mentor, Professor Fidelis Njokama. And we were able to publish a 5-year outcome we were able to publish our outcome, and it was very impactful. You can see that the evidence of impact of training 727 nurses and doctors was like a ripple effect, because you can see on the left chart the differences in the pre and post training score. But this program was also stepped down in various tertiary and secondary centers. And further people were trained, including mastering bag and math, which we found very effective. Since then, we have continued this training, and I have passed the baton to Professor Tongo, Olukemi Tongo, and they have continued till date to train. Reversing the trend of alarming high mortality, however, requires beyond the preliminary success we have had. In fact, there is also the Helping Babies Breathe, which is a simplified version for the community. Funding must be provided, and we must ensure that there is both pre-service and continuous in-service training. So let me now step back to before birth and discuss my contributions to research. I was involved with the first action trial, WHO multi-country randomized clinical trial, as the site principal investigator. And we found that for we used dexamethasone as a drug for imminent preterm delivery in ladies who are having threatened abortions, threatened deliveries. And we found that we saved 1 out of every 25 women that were treated. This was published at the New England Journal in 2020. Before that, I also contributed to a prevention of mother-to-child transmission study of HIV. We discovered that the transmission rate in Lasu'S was about 22.5%, about 1 out of 5 mothers passed the infection to their children. And this was one of the factors that enhanced that transmission was continued breastfeeding without viral suppression. But importantly, it was also inadequate resuscitation and preparedness. There were other studies with HIV. Time will not permit us to go into them. But another landmark study we did was the audit of congenital fetal anomalies as seen on ultrasound in a teaching hospital in Ikeja. We looked at over 8,000 antenatal scans over a 7-year period and discovered 64 congenital anomalies early, so intervention was impactful. Also, we also looked at trauma, birth traumas, and found that babies whose mothers have antenatal care did not have as much. In fact, 75% of the injuries occurred in unbooked mothers who did not have antenatal care. So, dear Madam Vice Chancellor, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, besides pioneering institutional neonatal resuscitation training in Nigeria, which started in Lutz, which I have dealt with, we also did teaching neonatal resuscitation to nurses and doctors all over. I also continued with the training of medical students and residents. Besides the other neonatal services, we continued training medical students on neonatal resuscitation. We also had publications written on some of our rare experiences at birth. One of them is congenital pulmonary airway malformation. This baby was born, and from birth, it was difficult to breathe. Eventually, we found that the baby airway was malformed. It was successfully operated upon. Osteogenesis imperfecta, softening of the bone that allows babies to have frequent fractures, was another one. From belly syndrome is another case that we talked about. So there are so many cases that we did. What about after birth and beyond? Breastfeeding advocacy. was another one. World Breastfeeding Week, we ensure that was used to advocate for improved breastfeeding. Because in a study in a private hospital, we found that pre-lactal, that is giving babies other things besides formula, besides breast milk, give them formula and so on, was found in 1 in 3 neonates. In the area of immunization, we advocated tetanus and diphtheria toxins in pregnancy and published another work on immunization as an underutilized prevention tool because it prevents infection. After that, also, we did studies on kangaroo mother care, compared the use of the conventional incubator with putting the baby skin to skin in babies that were less than 2,000 grams, and found that this natural way of kangaroo mother care, keeping the baby skin to skin, was quite effective and compared favorable with the incubator, and even better in some instances. There are other exclusive, breastfeeding practices among mothers and so on. I also participated in medical education research. We did the pediatric long case examination in the West African College of Physicians, looking at the past, present, and future, clinical summary and reasoning formats, a tool that we use in clinical practice and medical training. We continue. Now, I'd like to go to my contributions to Lasu'S and Lasu'S. The founding head, I'm also, I talked about site PI for a WHO action trial on antenatal corticosteroids. I also contributed to other research funded by Gates Foundation. Currently, I'm the site coordinator for the surfactant via laryngeal supraglottic airway. This is sponsored by African Unital Association, and we are comparing the giving of surfactants to babies using a laryngeal mask instead of putting endotracheal tube into them. If this succeeds, we'll be able to carry out this method of management of the respiratory distress in preterm babies, even in places as like primary health care and others. I also was involved with the coordinator for MPDSR for the perinatal arm in the maternal perinatal death surveillance response. We produced guidelines and SOPs. I'd like to touch on community service. AMCH is my baby. ADA Maternal Child Health. And I have had the support of many people right from the beginning. In this audience, we have my patron, Professor Abasego. Thank you, ma'am. And my chairman and others. AMCH mission was founded to reduce the unacceptable high mortality, neonatal mortality rate, and build capacity of frontline healthcare workers to reduce, all the unacceptable results that we've seen. And our key achievements, including helping babies breathe to many parts of the state. We collaborate with the State Ministry of Health. We collaborate with Rotary International, and we also collaborated with GE Healthcare, where they trained primary healthcare workers and equipped them with ultrasounds to do scanning for pregnant women. There are so many other things AMCH has done. But dear to my heart is the issue of the traditional birth attendant. Currently, Lagos is doing a review of their relationship with TBA. However, the traditional medicine board has been in existence for over 30 years. Secondly, over 60% of our deliveries are conducted outside the formal healthcare centers. They are conducted at the TBAs, at home or nursing home. So this widespread reliance on TBA is deep-rooted cultural phenomenon, and we need to be able to harness it. So I think improving outcome can be achieved through structured registration, licensing, and periodic training and use of simple, clear guidelines, regular supervision, data collection, establishing clear referral pathways to health centers that can minimize delay. We cannot wish away the traditional birth attendants. We must, work with them to improve the outcomes of neonates in our community. At policy level, I have served as co-chair of the newborn subcommittee for the National Child Health Technical Working Group from 2021. Having done all this research, collaborations with others, training, and clinical work, I have made some observations, and my recommendations are these. We need to implement the National Health Act and make sure that newborn care is free. Make funds available. Today, we have the National Insurance Fund that is being available. My good friend, Dr. Disu, is working very well with them. Well done. We need to fund and expand MAMI, and that should include neonatal health explicitly. We need to be, you have to have equitable basic health fund, provision fund for our children, from a continuum of care, from antenatal all the way down to neonatal care, where no one is left out. We need to create public awareness so that our population, our people can know their health rights and hold government accountable to its policies. We need to ensure that neonatal resuscitation is encouraged, encouraged for training in both pre and in-service curriculum. We need to invest in child health development because 70% of human capacity forms early. The highest long-term return is when we develop the under 5 children because they become the workforce in the future. We need to retain our healthcare workers, particularly those who are in the ICU, strengthen antenatal care, prioritize community intervention. In conclusion, I want to say that the knowledge, the policies, and the trained personnel already exist. What is missing is the political will to implement, funding to sustain, and a culture of accountability. We must not lose the SDG momentum. Nigeria's newborn shall survive, thrive, and reach their full potential. I give all the glory to God for sustaining me through my 40-year career as a pediatrician and neonatologist. I thank also my parents, my mom, who is sitting here. Thank you, ma. And my late father, who encouraged us to go even beyond the sky. Together, they brought us up to be God-fearing. I wish to acknowledge and express my profound gratitude to the Vice Chancellor of this great university, distinguished Professor Ibiyemi Ibilola Olatunji Bello, MNI, NPOM, an excellent administrator whose visionary leadership and commitment to academic excellence have created an enabling environment for scholarships and research. I also sincerely thank all the university principal officers seated here, the vice chancellors, the registrars, the bursars, the librarian, and all university governing councils for their administrative support. I acknowledge, I give posthumous appreciation to my teachers and mentors of blessed memory, from Dr. Kate Awuchogu down to Professor Gudipe and Professor Bankole. My teachers also include Dr. Nylander. I thank sincerely the Emeritus Professor Samuel Omokodion and Professor James Renner for teaching me the rudiments of manuscript writing and painstakingly supervising my dissertation for the West African postgraduate exam, my first postgraduate exam. I also thank my sisters, friends, and academic colleagues. Professor Alice Ante, one of my besties, happy birthday. Today is her birthday. And Professor Ekanem Ekure, my sincere heartfelt gratitude. I also honor those who started the transition from General Hospital to Lasu'S. Our then Chief Medical Director, Dr. Femi Olubile, saw a potential in me. Thank you, sir, and believed in me and encouraged me to grow. There are so many others, too many to mention. My special thanks go to Professor Abaseku. Thank you, ma'am. My first Lasu'Com mentor, advisor, teacher, and friend. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Felix Njokama was God sent to hold my hand through both administrative, academic, and research duties, spanning 2 decades. He literally put me on his back and I climbed on his shoulder. I inherited from him the head of the department in 2008 and passed the baton on. And I cannot thank enough the other HODs who came along. We have done a good work. They are good torchbearers, and they are listed. Anima Shaun, Shebanjo, Akinwumi, Kehinde, Salisu, our current HOD, I thank you all. I also acknowledge my colleagues in the Department of Pediatrics, our consultants, our registrars, our great nurses, and non-clinical staff, present and past. Your labor of love, particularly those who took research stations to Lagos, to every corner of Lagos and nationwide, thank you and well done. We also went into essential newborn care, which I have not talked about today. But our first directors and passionate child survival champions include Dr. Laraba Anga, Dr. Lu Sekumbi, Dr. Lua B, Professor Banke Oluwafemi, my first mentor, who is currently a professor herself. Thank you all. Nurses, the chief matron, Odukoya, Olowe, Kilajolu, Nana Obaba, I thank you all. My co-researchers over the years, Professor Adetokunbo O. Fabanwo, CMD Lasu'S, we work together. Professor Rachel Akinola, Professor Abidoye Badegashin, Professor Adedi Adewumi, and a host of others. Currently, the SASI research team includes Dr. Peter Ubwani, Dr. Deji Akinola, and our team of nurses and study coordinator, Mr. Favor Adewumi. I thank you all. And my Aburu, special Aburu, Dr. Ibironke Akinola, I thank you. My mentors and colleagues at LUTH, beginning from Professor Grange, who had the vision to invite the Latter-day Saints to come to Nigeria. Our past patriarch of blessed memory in NISOM and the traditional medicine board registrar, late Mr. Kadiku, I salute you for your enormous service and sacrifice. to ensure interaction with the farmer sector of the CBA. My deepest gratitude goes to Fadusin of latter day. I also want to acknowledge my siblings who have always been there, standing beside me, encouraging me. Mr. Inisa Peters, I can see you with your wife there. Mrs. Charity Lawson and her husband, Dr. Lawson, Mr. David Peter, Mrs. Victoria Itukarari, Mr. Charles Peter Ako, Pastor Ken Peters, all of you, your spouses and your children, you have been wonderful. I acknowledge you. Please permit me to acknowledge the lovely family that I married into. Our Olori Ebi, Chief Akinola Disu. I can see Mama Gbajabi Amila here. My sister-in-law, Alaja Yetunde Shabi, I thank you. All my beloved sister and brothers-in-law from Italeko, ẹ ṣeun, mo dúpẹ́ o. Ẹ kú ìfẹ́ mi. Our dear friends, Father Patrick CJ, Otumba and Olori, Ashenuga, the Owin, Dr. and Mrs. Nutius Sumonu, Ted and Mrs. Risti Akiode, I thank you all. Close to my heart, my New Nations Baptist family in Maryland. I can see you all there. Reverend Dr. Samson Abimbola, lead pastor and shepherd, and all our other pastors, elders, deacons, and deaconesses. I thank you all. Dear Vice Chancellor, Ma, this acknowledgement will not be complete without mentioning my spouse. Friends, better have the crown of my head, Ololufemi, Engineer Abiodun Disu. Thank you for your love, care, and support all the way. Finally, I wish to acknowledge all those who have contributed directly or indirectly to the success of my academic journey and to the preparedness of this inaugural lecture through advice, collaboration, support, or encouragement. Your contributions are sincerely appreciated. Thank you. My dear distinguished audience, Madam Vice Chancellor Ma, and other principal officers of this great institution, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen present, and all those online, I thank you most sincerely for your presence and for sparing time to join me in this celebration. God bless you. Finally, I would like to leave with you this quote by Melinda Gates. All children, no matter where they are born, deserve a healthy start in life. No investment in global health has greater return than saving the life of a child, the future generation. Thank you. I I cannot, my children, oh my children, Oluwatosin, Toluwalope, Oreoluwa, Opeyemi, you've been big inspirations to me. I thank you all. I pray that you will continue to rule your world. My granddaughter, to whom I'm passing my career baton, Ifeoluwa Isabella, thank you for your inspiration. Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. That was Professor Elizabeth Aruma Disu, our 124th inaugural lecturer. Her title, the topic was Help, Help,
Baby is not breathing, answering the call for survival of the Nigerian newborn. In her inaugural lecture, she asserts that every newborn deserves the chance to breathe, and immediate neonatal resuscitation within the golden minutes is vital for the to survival. She stresses that Nigeria's high neonatal mortality, largely due to birth asphyxia, infections, prematurity, and preventable complications, can be significantly reduced through skilled birth attendants, improved maternal care, and stronger health systems. Drawing on her 4 decades in pediatrics and neonatal natology, she passionately calls for urgent training, innovation, and collaboration to ensure that the cry for help at birth is answered, thereby saving lives and securing healthy futures for Nigerian children. Professor Elizabeth Aruma Disu, congratulations. Congratulations. Welcome officially and formally now to the body of professors in Lagos State University. Congrats.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We have come to the end of this 124th inaugural lecture with Lagos University, and we allow the academic profession to live in reverse order. It has been a successful story. We thank all of you for coming. It has been a fantastic afternoon of learning. I will thank Almighty God that we have done. They don't do the wrap on this very one. And then in another 2 weeks' time, we should be doing the 125th inaugural lecture. And we're going to unveil who is going to be the next inaugural lecturer. And I know we want to say big thanks to all of you, for everybody who have come from far and near, whether from Lasu'S, from Inaugural, from Kufa, from Lasu'S, from Lagos University, our community. We want to say big thanks to all of you. And don't forget what you are living for. Our guests from Lasu'S and Lasu'S, there's a pack for you. There's a package that is packed for you. They are already in your buses. You don't need to queue outside to collect your own packs as well. Those recommendations, funding, and partnership that all the newborns must live and survive and exist as well. It's all in our hands. That has been the outcome of this very 124th inaugural lecture. We'd like to say big thanks to all of you, our media partners and friends, our lost rituals, royal fathers, family friends, those in the corporate world as well, and everybody who has come from near and far